It's still draft time around here, and we're going to be continuing the draft process with draft profiles on Collin Murray Boyles, who is a little disappointing, Egor Demin, and somebody who could be a steal later in the first and maybe even the second round, and Joan Barringer. We're going to talk about it all and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for turning in Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. And every dayers, I'm Hayes, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts, by the way. And today's episode is brought to you guys by no one but me. We're waiting on Pat the designer to come in as well. But we're going to continue our draft process today. We got three profiles that we're going to complete on players. Some ranges from disappointing, some ranges to extremely promising, depending on how you look at that draft process. And the first player that we're going to talk about today is Collin Murray Boyles. Now, this is a player that initially coming into this draft process actually was talked about like a lottery pick, right? He was talked about as a player that could even not be on the board by the time the Bulls do draft. The measurables came back at him at 6'6". The athletic testing did not come back good for him at all. And as a player that their upside is going to be basically defensively, he went from a player that some teams were looking at as maybe a two-way player and some solid production there offensively to more of a one-dimensional player. Now teams are kind of more so looking at him at just what he can become defensively. And that's where the interesting part comes in for Collin Murray Boyles and how you evaluate him as a prospect, right? Because if the offense never comes around, which I think it's a high chance. I want to be clear here. It's a high chance that he's never really an offensive factor in the NBA. When you look at the way that he scored in college, right? I think that's the thing that you have to look at. He was a high usage rate player, had a usage rate of almost 30%, right? And that is typically like if you have a usage rate even above 22% in the NBA, you're either a first option on a team or you're the offense, right? You are the engine of the offense. And I think now that you've had some time to kind of process and look at the draft process, that it really doesn't seem like that's not what he's going to be at the offensive level. He has a guard size. He's guard sized as far as height. He doesn't have a really great vertical. The wingspan is decent, right? But his best position projectedly by most draft experts is center. So you would be committing to a 6'6", 6'7" center with not a ridiculous wingspan, not really hugely athletic, that still I do think can bang defensively. Like I'm not worried about the defense, right? I think Collin Murray Boyles is going to be able to guard fours and fives at the next level. The bigger question about CMB is that worth the 12th overall pick? That's what the Bulls, right, and many teams are going to have to ask themselves in the lottery, is CMB, is he the player that you want to take there with how the limitations that's projected for him? Texting Pat. And that's a question there. That's a legitimate question because I see CMB and I see the talent. And I think he has defensive player of the year upside. But is that worth the 12th overall pick? That's the bigger question you have to ask yourself here. Is that worth the 12th overall pick? And to me, personally, it's not. There are too many players that have some legit center size and that also have a higher offensive upside that to me, I can't possibly look at those guys, look at it and say it's worth taking him at number 12. I just can't say that. And maybe that ends up being wrong. Maybe he does end up being a guy that gets to the NBA, he outperforms, he's ready to go. But I don't know. I just don't know. Don't you think he'll be undersized and won't get touches he did in college? Well, I don't know when you left that, but that's exactly what I'm getting into, is that he's not going to be able to be the high usage rate player that he was. He's not going to be that. It's just not going to happen for him. So you're looking at him then and saying, all right, defensively. And I do think defensively he's going to be fine. He's too strong with too long of a wingspan, I think, to completely fail when it comes down to that. He is going to be a productive defensive player in the league. I just look at that and say, that's not worth taking at 12. It's not worth taking at 12. And that's why personally, I would pass up on CMB. That's just my personal opinion. But I do think that he's a guy that, again, I could see AK falling in love with him. for sure. I can see AK looking at CMB and saying, this is a player, especially because the Bulls' biggest need is defense. It is defense. You don't necessarily need a bunch of offense right now with how the team is currently constructed. And I do think the Bulls are going to be looking at players that don't necessarily take anything, or should at least be looking at players that don't take away anything offensively from Modest Buzelis, right? I'm looking at Modest Buzelis as a player that you have to invest in, right? I don't want to see Modest do the Kobe White. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see what happened with Kobe, where his role changed every single year he was in the league. And then finally, like, this is the first year, hopefully that we see him not have to have his role change from season to season. That's the hope, but that's not even guaranteed. So I like CMB as a prospect. I think he's a solid prospect. If we were picking 18th, I'd take him. And I do think you're going to see CMB fall out of the lottery in this draft. I just think you're going to see it happen. And I think the main reason that you're going to see that happen is strictly because of the limitations that he has offensively. Despite the amazing upside that he does have defensively, it's just not worth the risk there at number 12. It's just not worth it to me. Personal opinion, right? Bears Junkie says, I feel like I've been following you all morning. It's getting creepy at this point, bro. I've been all over the place, man. This is my 4th episode this morning. Small forward, power forward as well. Oh, right. They just need a great potential 3 guards at max. That's it. A small forward, power forward as well. Well, that's Collin Murray Boyles is either going to be a power forward or a center. That's it. Despite only being 6'6", he's not going to be a guard at the next level. That would literally ruin all the defensive upside that he has if you put a guy like CMB with the lack of lateral quickness there at guard. So despite his height, he's going to be a power forward or he's going to be a center. And then I think that also thing that you have to talk about then as well there is Modest Buzelis' best position actually small forward? Is that the question? Is he going to be able to make the shots that you would need him to make at small forward for him to be there? That's where I think. And that's one of the issues that we have here. Unlike Danny Wolf, the more I study his game and skills, I like Danny Wolf too. And we'll eventually get into a prospect coverage of Danny Wolf for sure. But to get back on the CMB, so just to look over who CMB is as a player, right? It really comes down to is that deep, because again, I want to be clear here. While I'm knocking him offensively, I'm knocking him because of what he lacks athletically as well. But the defensive upside that is there is legitimate. That there is a player in Collin Murray Boyles that defensively can turn into a dog. But I personally think I would be more comfortable. Like, for example, the Minnesota Timberwolves pick at 17th. I don't think I'm passing up anybody on the board who's projected to be there at 17 if I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I'm not taking that at 12. He has a great feel for the game. His off-ball defense is amazing. His on-ball defense is really good. He's a big body in the paint. He fights for rebounds. He's built like a damn tank. All those things are legitimate. But at 6'6.5", I just don't know. And 7-foot wingspan. I've said before, if you're going to be a 6'9" center, you need to have at minimum a 7-foot wingspan, ideally more like 7'1", 7'2". If you're going to be a 6'6" power forward or center, you ideally want that wingspan to come in being more like 7'5". And he doesn't have that. And that's the problem with it. And the offense, I'm not even worried about the offense when it comes down to it. The offense, take the offense and throw it away. He's a player that's gotten a lot of comparisons to Draymond Green, and I understand that to a degree. But Draymond is such a unique player who was on such a unique team with a coach that knew how to maximize the skill set of Draymond Green that I don't know if the Draymond comparisons are ones that you can just throw onto any player, because really Draymond was in a very unique situation and a very unique player that is going to be hard to replicate that level of success. There are not a lot of players that have the physical makeup, the offensive limitations of a CMB that end up making the NBA. There's just not. But I do think at base, you're getting a solid defender that can be a starter because of his defensive loan, and he's a very smart basketball player. So I think what you look at when it comes down to that, but he doesn't really have the range. His mid-range shooting is, but because of his lack of height, I don't know if that mid-range shot is going to be as potent for him in the NBA as it was in college. And those are things that you're running into. And overall, We'll see what happens there. CMB, though, let me know what you guys think on him as a prospect. If you would like to take the Bulls to take a look at him, let me know all that down below. But with that said, we are going to move into next up, we're going to be talking about Egor Demin and his prospect as a draft potential here for the Chicago Bulls. But first, we got to get to a message from Car Gurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting. But between the confusing prices and hitting fees, it can feel overwhelming. That's why I love using Car Gurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. With over 4 million listings, Car Gurus has more new and used cars than any major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data you need to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. Need a deal you can trust? Car Gurus makes it easy to compare vehicles side by side with unbiased deal ratings. The best feature, price drop alerts, so you know exactly when the perfect car is available for your budget. Plus, the in-depth vehicle details give you peace of mind before stepping onto any lot. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. That's cargurus.com to make your deal the best deal. That's cargurus.com. cargurus.com. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, Bulls fans, let's get into the next draft prospect. And this one's a guard. Egor Demin. Now, this is a guy that me and Pat actually talked about very, very early into this draft process, into the season, right? Egor Demin is a player that I like him a lot. 6'8", 19 years old. He has a 6'10" wingspan. I give it this, right? He is a player that is kind of like, people have compared him to Josh Giddey, and that is one of the comps for him, but he's more athletic than that. He's like a mix between Josh Giddey and Sean Livingston pre-injury. I want to be clear there. Pre-injury Sean Livingston. I think Sean Livingston pre and post-injury were two very different players. But that's kind of the Venn diagram that you're looking at, right? Is Josh Giddey, Sean Livingston, and then a little bit of Deni Avdija, I think, is there as well for him, right? That's the Venn diagram that you're looking for in a guy like this one. He can make every advanced pass that you need on the floor, period, right? He's also no slouch scoring-wise. 15 points per game on 50% true shooting last year, but the problem is he was only an 18% three-point shooter, but he took 5 of them per game. So he's not really a threat to stretch the floor, right? And this is a guy that his off-ball defense is really good. His commanding of the offense is really good. He passes amazingly well, and he has a great feel for the game. You know what this feels like? This would be the pick if the Bulls weren't going to keep Josh Giddey. I would love Egor Demin if the Bulls weren't going to keep Josh Giddey. But even if the Bulls weren't going to keep Coby White, I don't know if Egor Demin is the type of player you want next to Josh Giddey, even if Coby White is not in your long-term plans. Again, I'm not saying Coby White is not in the Bulls' long-term plans. I'm just saying that if Coby White is not in the Bulls' long-term plans, I still don't know if Egor Demin is the guy that you want to replace him. I think there are a lot better prospects that make more sense for the Bulls if you're not going to keep Coby White and you're looking for another guard. Personally, again, that's my personal feeling on it. But that's what you have to ask yourself if you're the Chicago Bulls. You do. Right now, I do think, and I've said many times before, I'm not mad if the Bulls go best player available, but going the best player available for a player that is so similar to somebody that you already have on your roster, it raises some questions, right? But for Egor Demin, just the player that he is, he's a guy that in the half court, in transition, he's dangerous. You give him the ability to come down off of a screen and get creative, cutting to the basket, extremely creative, right? This is a guy that has shown flashes of being a high-level scorer in college. Wasn't consistent, but at his age, and the experience, you can see him possibly turning into that guy that can be a guy that's more creative in the half court. We're talking about Egor Demin, brother. How you feeling about Egor? Yeah.
First of all, how you feeling about Joe Tooney? No, I'm sorry, wrong show. My bad. That's my bad. Work popped up. I had to go run.
I was already live, so there you go.
You're how I found out. I was in here. I was like, why is Hayes not on the screen? Then I heard Joe Tooney signed. I was like, oh God, I gotta go. We're talking about Egor Demin. All right, let me get my bearings here real quick. I'm not gonna lie to you. The more I've watched Egor Demin, the more I've broken down tape on Egor Demin. Let me start with the positives here on Egor Demin. He's the best facilitator in the draft bar now.
By far.
There's not even anybody close to me as far as facilitating in the draft than Egor Demin. I think for the size, as a wing guy, his ability to pass the basketball, his ability to just be probably the smartest player on the floor at all times is through the roof.
Mm.
Where I don't like Egor Demin, and I think he's going to be incredibly limited in the NBA level, which I think is very tough. One, especially if you draft him, right? Like the skill set where he's elite is with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
You keeping Josh Giddey? Because that's not going to work. In my mind, that doesn't work together at all. You're taking away his best skill set that he has in the draft and basically saying, we don't need you to be a passer. Come in here and be a scorer. I don't think that's who he is. To me, he's completely limited scoring. He's very raw still. There's a lot of time left, but when I look at his game in college, completely relying on ball screens at BYU on 192 total possessions. I'm sorry, he in the half court offense, he operated 192 total possessions as the pick and roll ball handler, and he finished at a high rate, finished at about a 52% rate on that. Completely below average as a spot up shooter in those situations. Everything was going to the rim. I think that's going to limit him, especially with defenses collapsing in at the rim. And to me, he has no isolation game. They ran 20 isolation plays for this man in 33 games at BYU. Like, I don't see the offensive upside enough for me to take him at 12. I do think that he is if you moved on from Giddey, maybe there's a conversation there.
What I was saying before you.
But Giddey gives you the offensive upside already. We just saw it. We saw what Giddey can be as a scorer. We've seen what Giddey can kind of become as a shooter. Even like, to me, Egor Demin just doesn't fit in with what the Bears want. My bad. Well, what the Bulls want to do here.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like if we didn't have Giddey, I'd be all for it. Like honestly, I'd be all for it because I think there's so you could definitely see where him and Kobe could work out together. And what I was saying before you came in is like, even if you're saying you're going to move on from Kobe, a Dimon Giddey backcourt is not going to really net you much. I think you're going to be taking away, to your point, the strengths of what both players bring. I like Egor Demin as a player. I like him a lot as a player, to be 100% honest with you. But I just don't see how it helps him or helps this team by drafting Egor Demin as it stands right now. You're not making any type of forward progress on anything that you have, or if anything, it may set you back.
Yeah, I think it becomes redundant at the position. Yeah. Like your goal is what, to play Egor at the 4?
Don't say that, because Billy Donovan will hear it and be like,
"Hey, let's play him at the 5, baby." about them small ball.
He has
five,
a 6'10" wingspan, 6'8". Sounds like a 4.
He weighs 11 pounds. That's not the point. I didn't say that. I asked.
Listen, get him a pair of up tempos, it add 10 pounds right there.
And the camera's gonna add another 10 for Billy Donovan.
There you go. Yeah.
No, but it's not a move that I think fits with me. I feel the same way about Collin Murray Boyles. I know I missed that part of the show, but I feel the same way about both of these guys. It's just, can they be good players? There's raw upside. Yeah, sure. Like, am I gonna say that? I think when you look at Josh Giddey's game, you wouldn't have said he would have been the scorer you saw in the second half of the season last year either. You wouldn't have said that he can be this level of three-point shooter, this level of finisher at the rim, right? All of these things, as well as the facilitator. So I'm never going to say Egor can't reach that potential, but I got a dude who's 3 years older than Egor. 3? I don't even think he's 3. Is he 2?
Egor Demin is 19.
Egor Demin's 19. Josh Giddey's 22. He's 3 years older than him. And he's doing the exact same thing. Like, I'm set at that position, unfortunately. And so for that reason, I'm out.
All right.
When Shark take on you.
For that reason, I'm out. We'll get into let's get into catch up and talk about C&B before we talk about Joan Barringer coming up next. But I'm saying it like it's my ad read. It's your ad read. Go ahead and take it away, bro.
Hold on. Give it a sec. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. No, too much happened right at the start of the show.
Bro,
I was like, hey,
so much.
You want to know what's crazy? I was like, hey, he's gonna start the show because he got to work.
Exactly.
And let's do an ad read. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. But let me tell you something. When I found out about Skims, that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. That's right. I'm talking about draws, ladies and gentlemen. I've always had issues with underwear, fit, comfort, or just finding the right style for me. Skims has changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. To me, I think that when you're talking about Skims, there's a 5 days a week where I'm literally just always on the move, and you get that rub, right? You know what I'm talking about? Between the thighs, thicker guys, you know what I'm saying out there? You get that little bit of rub. Not dealing with that with Skims. Whenever I'm moving, if I'm working out, if I'm out just moving around, if I'm at the gym, they never lose their shape. They never ride up. And maybe it's in my head, but I swear since I started wearing these, my gains have improved as well. So make sure to tap in with Skims. That ad read got me. They're perfect for my active lifestyle. They move with me. They never lose their shape. They stay in place all day, whether I'm working or just running errands. They're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight frame material is amazing and almost like you're wearing nothing. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. Talk about draws, hey.
So, Pat, before we get into Barringer, how you feel about C&B since you missed that part of the show?
Listen, no. That's no. I'm not. Listen, I get the motor, the versatility. I like the fact that there's some ability to finish through contact. I like the energy. He's heavier, Dalen Terry.
I don't even know if I could say that. Like, he's a unique player. Comparison is going to be hard for C&B, but it's just like I'm not going to at 12 take a player that no matter how good he can be defensively, I'm not taking that at 12. That's basically what I said in my part of it. It's just,
but I think
it's not worth it at 12.
That, right? Like how good he can be defensively is also inconsistent.
I think he's pretty consistent defensively. I think he'll be consistent defensively at the NBA level. I understand why you have doubts. I want to be clear there, but I'm not really worried about his consistently defense. Maybe his rookie year, but going forward, I think he's going to be fine defensively.
I just feel like he's one of those guys where when you go through, especially, I'm a big game by game guy, right? Like there's this correlating factor where the defensive ability looking real elite lines up really well with a dude that is not better than him. Like those, it's kind of one of those where it's like, oh, elite defensive game here. Love that. Who are you guarding? He's not getting drafted. He's going to be an accountant in 2 years, a very tall accountant.
That's correct.
Like, to me, I think that's where the defense shines for me versus a guy who night in and night out, you're just like, he's the best defender on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, we shall see. But listen, I'm willing to take a risk at that in 18 to 20, but at 12, no, I'm good on
that. Yeah, right. And I think that's the difference, right? It's just too high in the draft to take a chance on. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. It's never too high to take a chance on the upside guy, because I do think you have a team that can actually have they can make the upside guy look okay. Because I think we're talking about a guy here coming up next in Joan Barringer that is the upside guy, and I have high hopes for this dude at the NBA level. But you have to know that upside has any potential. Like, you got to feel like 75% this is realized.
See, and the way that I look at it, kind of in the same vein, but on the opposite side, like I look at it like a player like C&B, I see his floor being high because of the special. He's offensively, I'm not worried about anything. He had almost 30% usage rate. He's not getting that at the NBA. You needed that to get 16 points in college.
Yeah,
that tells me you're not going to be nothing offensively in the league, at least right away. right? Yeah, so we're looking at what you can bring defensively. I think that floor is high there, but again, I'm not willing to take it there. But let's move on. Joan Barringer. This is a guy, and I don't know if you saw it. I covered on Central a couple of days ago, and he was literally a guy that I didn't even initially come into this process planning on scouting very heavily. But as I watched this kid's tape more and more, and I'm just like, hey, listen, very raw. I want to be clear,
Yes,
very
100%.
raw. But the floor that I see for him, the shot blocking, the rebounding, the lob threat, like if he just is that at the NBA level, I can see him having a 10-year career as the first big off a bench.
I feel like this kid he might be the Embiid of this draft. Now, I know that sounds crazy. Everybody, breathe real quick. Look how much this kid has grown. I don't know if people notice. He started playing basketball 3 years ago. He got too tall to play soccer. He started playing basketball 3 years ago. His first year playing basketball, he was 16 years old.
That's crazy.
And he was playing with 10-year-olds. Because he did not know how to play basketball. In that time, he is going to one of those players who has been very consistent at the professional level, right? Very different versions of professional here, but very consistent at the professional level. I think he's got an amazing quick first step. I think that he does a really good job finishing with power around the rim. To me, his defense his intelligence in the defensive transition game, I don't even know if you can call it intelligence. It almost seems like instinct, especially with how little he's played basketball throughout his life. He's one of those guys where it's like, I got it off the glass, go. That fits perfectly with what the Chicago Bulls want to do here. I do think that the limitations that he has, you have to look at all of them and say, well, maybe he just hasn't had enough professional training. Maybe he just hasn't played enough basketball for the limitations that you see in his game. I would be intrigued by him, but only because I actually think the skill set that he has fits with having a Josh Giddey on this team, fits with having a Kobe White on this team, fits with having a Modest Buzelis on this team. Do I think that he's going to be the best player out of this draft? No, y'all saw me yesterday. My boy Seti. That's the guy that I'm looking at, and I'm like, yeah, that's the player I would love to see the Bulls get. But do I think that he could be the player that might fit best in this draft with the Chicago Bulls? He's in the running for that for me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, do you take that at 12, or do you, because he is slated to go at the end of the first round, do you call the Brooklyn Nets, who have 2 picks there in the 20s, and say, we got something for you?
The only thing I would say is, the teams behind you are very big on the foreign market. And I could see a Miami. I could see a Milwaukee even. I could see the Los Angeles Lakers are in massive need of a center.
Listen, I tell you what, that's the team really to worry about taking him and saying, forget the position of where we're picking at. They may just take him just to take him because
and
he brings a lot of that.
And that's kind of where, to me, I would fear that if you did move back, I'd be interested in the possibility of moving back.
I'm not saying moving back. I'm saying acquiring another one. So using a future pick to acquire another pick in this draft, not moving down from 12.
You're saying at a second pick.
Yes.
I'm gonna be real. I don't think he's gonna be there.
I mean, you could wait. You could wait it out and see who's going to be there, right?
That's a dangerous game. I don't know if he's going. Well, the Milwaukee is the 19th pick. Well, they're not giving that one up. I was going to say, is the 19th pick going to Brooklyn?
Yeah, the 19th is going to Brooklyn. They have 4 picks in this draft.
4 picks in the first round.
They have 4 picks in the first round. So that's the team that I'd be looking at. If you want to get back into the first round, that's a team that you may be able to convince doing that.
I would try to give up. Oh man, if you could do that, I would try to give up.
Would you give up Portland 27 to try to move back into 19?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I think that that's where you would want to see this young man to take that upside pick, and you got to find the unknown. You got to find your Jokic. That's what I keep saying. You got to find your Jokic. You got to find your star, the guy that you think is a solid player that's going to be a star. I don't know if Joan will be that. But in 4 years of basketball, he's come an incredibly long way.
Yeah.
And that's
not normal. And keep in mind, he's still only 18.
He's 18 years old. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid is not normal. He shouldn't be that freaking good. He didn't play basketball for the first 17 years of his 16 years of his life.
Do you remember how it was talked about when the Bucks drafted Giannis? When it was like, yeah, there's this Greek kid with big hands that people are starting to like. Like, that's how he was talked about.
No.
I think that Barringer has the chance. I'm not saying he's going to be MVP caliber, but I do think he has the chance to be one of those players that people completely overlook in this draft. And 2-3 years down the road, where they're like, you got him where in this draft?
You got to remember, they drafted Giannis to be an elite number 2 to Jabari Parker.
Yes.
That was it. They drafted Giannis.
I don't even know elite. I don't even think thought they thought he was going to be as elite as he turned out. I think they thought he was going to be a solid two-way player that can play off of their offensive hub in Jabari Parker. And then very early on, by the second year of that, they're like, hey, wait a second.
Well, by the second year that Jabari Parker had no knees anymore. So that was
it just the second year? I thought
it was quick, bro. It was quick. It was quick. It was one of them where it was like, oh, this is over. Because I think by the third year he was elbowing Mike Dunleavy in the ribs in that playoff game.
That's crazy. No, because by Jabari Parker's third year, he was still a 20-point per game scorer.
Yeah, but he wasn't playing that many games.
Yeah, it was 50 games that season.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Them knees wasn't holding up no more.
From 76 to 51 games and never touched 40 games the rest of his NBA career. That's crazy.
Them knees wasn't holding up no more, my boy. Big shout out Jabari. He's a Chicago legend, but you know,
for sure.
Them knees didn't cooperate, just like everybody knees in Chicago don't cooperate. So
that is
man. I think Barringer to me is somebody to keep a serious eye on. I think he's a name that we may talk about in 5 to 6 years as that guy. But I would rather the scenario you laid out, get somebody at 12, Cedric, and then go get him.
Yeah. So we shall see. Anything left, Pat, before we get up out of here?
Nah, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Joe Tooney, 2 years, 51 million.
Yeah, you guys can follow me at CEO Hayes. Thank you for tuning in. Locked On Bulls is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choosing, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Fubo TV, and more. Love you guys. We'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Hopefully no Bears news drops before the pod starts. Go Bulls. Peace, y'all.
Peace. And they promise.